2020. 2020 is going to be a special year for us here at the People's Church. As I said last week, 2020 we are going to mark our 60th anniversary. I've been for the last 4 years or so, I've been inquiring and getting information as to when the history of PPFC. And of course, we in PAWI, we do have a history book written by Thomas McGinley, the Ablaze. It was produced for our 100 years anniversary. That is the 100 years anniversary of the Pentecostal Assemblies of the West Indies. So the Dominica District is also included in the Ablaze, and I just want to read a portion from it for us as we prepare for 2020. Amen? Are you still there? So it says in the Ablaze, the first direct link between the Pentecostal movement in Dominica and the origins of PAWI there is usually attributed to Douglas Scott, a Canadian who, along with fellow Canadian George Miller, is said to have conducted an evangelistic crusade in Roseau in 1959 under the auspices of the Church of God of Prophecy. That is in 1959. The church believed in the Pentecostal experience, and Scott was given permission by the government to remain on the island for 6 months. During that time, he conducted two water baptisms in the Roseau River. He rented a building known as La Paz on Queen Mary Street to accommodate the new converts. It appears that the pioneer work of the two missionaries never resulted in the actual establishment of their denomination, since the commonly accepted date of that denomination, that is Church of God of Prophecy, is 1993. The main problem here might have been their failure to obtain permits for a longer stay on the island, or they might have had a major rift with their denomination. In any event, Scott invited fellow Canadians in PAOC, that is the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada, which is our parent body, to oversee and develop the work. We know this through a letter which has survived in the PAOC archives, dated 23rd August 1959, from Scott to Abraham Jacobson, who was then stationed in Antigua. Jacobson visited the island and was clearly overwhelmed emotionally by what he saw and the prospects of developing a viable PAOC work here. In a later date, 31st August 1959, he wrote to George Upton, director of PAOC's overseas missions in Canada. Jacobson wrote about his first visit to the island in glowing terms, and the portions of the letter that he wrote is there in the book. I won't read that now for the sake of time. Upton, replying on 15 September 1959, assured Jacobson that PAOC was in favor of commencing ministry in Dominica, and that he would do all in his power to assist him. Upton continued by repeating a request received from Scott, that it was important that a first-class native worker with a gift of healing who could maintain the people who have been gathered is of utmost importance. So Scott was asking for somebody with the gift of healing. Send somebody with that gift. Upton concluded by asking whether McKillop, K-I-W-L-O-P, Mayor or Barber, one of whom were Canadian missionaries, could take turns in Dominica to ensure that the PAWI PAOC church would be established there. Upton also urged Jacobson to give Scott much encouragement since he had labored to spearhead the opening of the work. Back in Antigua, Jacobson was becoming consumed with the passion for extending the ministry into Dominica. He quizzed the Dominicans in Antigua, read as many books as he could obtain regarding the island, and tried to glean as much information as possible. In 1960, he made several visits to the island. Meanwhile, in Dominica, the organization of the new work continued apace. A hall seating 200 people became available in the Goodwill area of Roseau, in which the converts could congregate. 27 benches were borrowed, each seating 4 persons, and in addition, the people were invited to bring their own chairs and boxes on which to sit. The excitement of a newfound faith was contagious. Visitors began pouring into the services, but for many, the cost of discipleship dulled their interest, and as a result, the congregation dwindled. Still, Scott did not despair. He was convinced that a strong church would emerge in Roseau, and prophesied its extension to the villages of Wesley and Marigot. However, he was anxious that by the time of his departure from the island, a replacement would arrive in order to become acquainted with the people and gain their confidence. He proposed the date of 29 September 1959 for the arrival of such a person, but that replacement came several months later than he had anticipated, in the person of Dennis White. The latter's acquaintances with the new field had been facilitated by Jacobson, whom he had accompanied on some trips to the island. White was working in Antigua at the time, but felt increasingly that the Lord was calling him to the new mission field. Consequently, in 1960, he resigned his pastorate in Bethesda and relocated along with his wife Esther and their Antiguan-born son Richard to Dominica. Connie Martin remembered him walking into the CLC store, introduced himself to both herself and Meredith Nelson, and inviting them to a forthcoming crusade with evangelist George Muller as the main speaker. This first encounter was the beginning of a long and happy association with both ladies, that is Connie Martin and Meredith Nelson. There's lots more information, but I'll stay there for now. The point is there, according to the history, that Dennis White came sometime in 1960, took over a small work that was held in the La Paz building just over the bridge there at Easter Trading, upstairs somewhere there. And then it goes on to say that in 1964, they bought a building, we know the building under the bridge that got washed away in the last hurricane there. And they established that work there in Roseau with the help of Dennis White and Jacobson and others. So, 1960 we are taking as the birthing of our church, and by extension the Pentecostal Assemblies of the West Indies Dominica District. Amen? So we are going to celebrate 2020 with a number of activities, Thanksgiving and anniversary services. So let's prepare for that as we plan for 2020. Amen? Amen? Amen. So we'll give you some more of the history as time go by. I wish we could have some of the names like Auntie Connie and some of the others to come at different times and share the experiences from way back. Of course, we have Sister Favory and Sister Imelda Edwards, and some of those who are able to give us some more information. Amen? Good, good. So 2020 is going to be a good year at PPFC. Amen? Good.